the self-assessment is me in a puddle. That's a lot.
That's a lot. I don't know what to do for you. You know?
This is Lisa.
And this is Lana.
And we are taking care of our parents.
I got some troubles and I don't know what to do. I got some worries and I'll share them all with you. Sometimes we'll talk it out, or maybe scream and shout. It's always easy when I see you through with you, 'cause we are two old friends talking to old friends. Not too old, too old.
This is a podcast about what to expect when you're not expecting it.
Like, I'll save you, and then they shove you under, and then now you're drowning, and they're drowning, and now you're both drowning.
A couple of days, they're going to have some frozen meals, and that's okay.
Two old friends talking to old friends.
We're talking about some of the roles that we as caregivers take on within the different stages of what our parents need. One of the things I was saying when we were talking about getting ready to do this was that it's an ongoing question that changes day to day, month to month, year to year, and sometimes moment to minute. Exactly.
It's a fluid. And I think that's what's hard, is just being that flexible.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a plan, and then 5 minutes later that's not working for some reason, or things have changed, or your life has changed and you aren't able to do what you thought you could.
Yeah.
And it is an ongoing, it's ever changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, for anyone who's in the process of caring for their parent, there are a myriad of stages and there are a myriad of diseases. And you and I are dealing with what we're dealing with. And that has changed drastically in the past year or 5 years. I think all of us, I think anyone of our age or even younger can relate to helping our parents with technology. You know, my parents were like traveling around in a motorhome for years. Yeah. So they could deal with all sorts of things. But my dad trying to attach a document to his email, I explained that to him 11 times with major drawn out graphics and long instructions. You know, that was a stage of sort of taking care of our parents, right?
Yeah.
That is completely different now, 10 years later.
Right.
Completely.
Right.
So whatever you're doing right now, you're going to have to be flexible for it changing.
Right. Because it will change. And I think the other thing that's interesting about just caregiving is there are some chronic diseases or diseases that, you know, it's a long haul. Okay. Yeah. So this is a need. This will continue versus my mom is doing great. Oh my gosh, she broke her hip.
Yep.
And, you know, everybody kind of rallies, and that looks very different than this is a chronic disease. This is the best day they're going to be is today. And tomorrow it's going to be a little less. And I've noticed, you know, human nature, we all want to help in the short term. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, your mom broke her hip. Absolutely. I'm going to bring a meal. And this is just, everybody wants to help short term. Right. You know, friends are all there, everybody. And I'm that way too. Yeah, it's like, well, I'll bring a meal, whatever. And then you feel good. And aren't I a nice person? But when they say, okay, well, we need a meal every week for 5 years, I mean, that's a totally different ask. And so I think we have to recognize caregiving. Yeah. It's an acute or the short term. And that's pretty that's difficult, but it's easier. Right. Because it's short term and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The long term is a different. Yeah.
But do you wonder if that's somewhat of a story in your own head too?
Yeah.
Because there are people, I mean, we have an idea that that's how everyone's going to respond. And so we might not even ask for help. I think and that goes for, you know, even the people dealing with it. Like, okay, my mom has been an amazing caregiver, and I am just kind of coming in different stages. And that's the other thing I want to talk about with different stages of care is because like what you've been dealing with your parents, with all 4 of your parents, is much more hands-on day to day.
Right.
While I lived in LA and then I would fly in because my dad's got MS, but my mom had a knee replacement.
Oh, yeah. So there's a short-term, long-term.
Yep, I had short-term, long-term, but I came in because she couldn't take care of dad, so I was taking care of both of them, and that was intensive for 3 months, and then see you later, I'm heading back to LA, But my mom never asked. She wouldn't ask for help. She was absolutely drowning and wasn't going to ask for help. And so is that the story in her head, is no one's going to want to anyway?
Yeah.
And then when you, maybe there are people out there who's like, hey, I can do Tuesdays every Tuesday for as long as you need it. There are good people out there who could say, while I'm making my own meal, I'll just make an extra enchiladas for you guys and bring it over. And maybe that is something that somebody is capable of doing. But in our heads, well, I don't know if I would do that. Well, I can't guarantee that everybody's like me.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is it that we don't even ask, or we don't, or when we ask, we do that tone of could you? Well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to sound that way. So I'm not going to even ask.
Mm-hmm.
And then people don't know.
Right. They can't read your mind.
They can't read your mind or your needs.
You have to state your need.
Yeah.
We talked about this, Lisa. How did you say that? I can't think of you.
It's an amazing video I watched. I don't know if it was a TED Talk, but this woman talked about on any issue. This is not just caregiving. This is for life.
Yeah.
She said, you tell people what your desire or your need is. Okay. And it could be a dream. And then you tell them what your obstacle is.
Oh,
because
that's
people
a piece.
like to help.
Yes.
But if you just went through okay, I'm an actor. I'm like, I want to be an actor. But, it's so expensive in LA and I can't find an agent and I don't even know how, I don't have any connections. I got to take acting classes. Well, how the heck is anyone supposed to help? They're like, oh.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. I don't know what to do for you.
Good luck with that.
Exactly. But if I say to somebody, I am so excited to move to LA because I want to be an actor, I'm a little worried because I don't know anyone there. And if I just state that person goes, I actually know someone in LA. Mm-hmm. Or they can go, you know what? I don't know anyone, but let me ask around. They have an idea and it's something that is surmountable a word? I know insurmountable, but is surmountable. It's surmountable. I'm going to look that up and make sure that's a word. But it's something they can actually do for you. Mm-hmm. And we did this recently with my mom and dad because my mom has gotten to the point where she's been doing so much. Cooking is like an utter chore for her. She's like, I just don't want to cook. So,
and I'm 51 and I'm sick of cooking.
Right.
So even if I'm not, she's sick of cooking.
She's sick of cooking.
Aren't we all?
Exactly. And, my mom does not ask for help. We come from a family of we don't ask for help. But we started putting it out there. We started
What is your need?
What is your need? And my God, did we have so many people giving. My mom has a little refrigerator. We did not have room for all of the stuff. And it wasn't just short term. People were like, you let me know. And it has continued for months of different people bringing food amazingly because it's something tangible, surmountable, they can do. People hate feeling helpless. And if you give them the laundry list of things that are not working,
what is your desire?
They can't find a place to put themselves into it. They're like, my God, you're drowning. I don't know what to do.
And I think, Lisa, okay, so we're talking about friends, but I think this would also apply to siblings that are out of state.
Yes.
You would call and you would say, Mom and Dad are fill in the blank. And I need these 3 things. What could you help with?
Right.
And so you're not telling them, but you're stating the need or the desire of your parents.
Right.
And they pick, maybe you have a brother in Seattle that's an accountant. Or
coming from a person who was at a distance, you do feel helpless. And when we feel helpless, we end up not doing anything.
Right. And they want to help. Most.
Not everybody does. I mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
We're dealing with roles. We're dealing with stages. We're dealing with the fact that what is your particular scenario?
And we're dealing with families.
Yes.
So there's all the drama of the siblings and relationships and roles with that.
Exactly.
So that's but if you can be clear, and maybe their answer is, I can't do anything right now. And of course, that would make me mad, but we'll just, you've got to process that,
But if you don't ask,
right, They don't know.
Then one, they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a story. I'm going to now quote Brené Brown, is I got the story in my head of, well, they're not going to help anyway. Well, isn't that convenient?
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to ask or say to them. And it doesn't mean offloading all of your drama. Like when you're like, oh my God, I have so much to do. And you're like, sometimes we need to vent. And I can be that person if you need to vent and just lay it all on the line. But other times we do need to say something specific and give them even an opportunity to do something. Because I've learned that if we don't, and I have a story in my head that doesn't give them a chance, they don't know why I'm not asking. There's can be a whole big, they got a story, I got a story. And I think, good Lord, taking care of my parents is really about learning to be very honest to what is, not what I think is happening or what I'm worried about happening or what has happened in the past.
Yeah. And you go into those old roles. It cracks me up when I go into my mom and dad, and all of a sudden I'm this person that I was 20 years ago, and it's like, okay, well, why am I? Because I'm acting like I'm 16, you know?
Unbelievably, that happens. I mean, and I think that's true throughout our whole lives.
Yeah. I have a hard time asking for help. And you have to kind of dissect that too. And one person said to me, think about, like, I like to help people. And you just said people like to help.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you're saying to someone, I have it all, I can do it all, you're almost stealing their blessing. I never thought about it that way, but people have a gift of hospitality, of making meals. I mean, that brings joy to them, and don't steal their blessing. If that's rewardable for them, you have to think, okay, this would really help me. And that the win-win there is then they are blessed and feeling there's a purpose.
Yep.
Especially when people are in the elderly stages of their life. What I'm seeing is they want a purpose. Yeah. So one of my parents' friends, she loves their dog, and she will help with the dog if they're doing appointments and things like that.
Awesome.
And I mean, just simple, but she loves that dog, and she's just all excited about taking care of their dog. So it can be super simple, but just think about that. If you're having a hard time asking for help, you are blessing others and giving them something specific to do, and then they can help. Yeah.
I had one friend who said it even harsher than blessing. She was like, it's actually selfish.
Oh?
So basically, you're a better person then because you're the helper. And I was like, oh, ow, that one hurt because you're dang right. I'll take you to the airport because I'm going to help you out. I love helping. I would never think in Los Angeles of asking anyone to take me to the airport. Oh, really? So you think of yourself as a better person. You'll do it, but you won't. Mm-hmm. And I had to really look at myself to see, is there a little bit of a superiority issue I have here?
Or even a pride. Oh, I have to do all these things for my parents, and I am so busy. And there's a pride, of I'm the child that's doing it all.
I take on that role. So actually taking on, when we talk about the roles of taking care of your parents, you actually have to make sure that you haven't taken on an identity.
Yeah.
Because if your role right now is to handle all of the appointments or whatever it is, that's not your identity. Mm-hmm. You are not the appointment taker. It's just that's the role that you have right now. And you have to be willing to let that go and change it based on your needs and perhaps somebody else's.
And I think an exercise that I did when I started to get burned out, I went to counseling.
Good for you.
And he said, okay, well, tell me what you're doing for your parents. So I listed off these things.
Give me the list. Let me hear it.
Okay, so I developed a trust for them. So I was the lawyer. Okay.
Okay.
I was the nurse.
Yeah.
Because I'm a nurse.
Yeah.
So I was doing all the meds, all the physicians, administrative assistant.
Right.
Okay. I was calling them every morning, getting them centered. This is the plan for the day. Do you have, okay? So the event organizer.
Yeah, scheduler.
I was their daughter. I was their counselor. So my father-in-law would call and say, I'm really frustrated with mom right now, I don't really want to hear that.
Right.
So I was their counselor. I was their grocery shopper. Okay.
My
so,
goodness.
So no wonder I was burnt out.
Well, you do have a full-time job.
And I'm a wife and I'm a mother. And, so let's not even list all the other things. We're all, a sister, Okay. So I didn't really realize until he had me do that exercise. Like,
Wow.
these are the things. Okay. And then he said to me, okay, well, what can you stop? And that was a difficult, because then it's like, well, no one else is going to do it as good as me.
Wow.
No, because I'm so good at it. So there's a process of that. And then the other thing I realized, what could I also give up in my life? So I like to clean the house. It's relaxing for me. I like a clean house.
Okay, so you're weird, but go on.
I know. And I
like to do laundry. I will say that.
Okay,
I do like to do laundry. So you're not weird. I have my thing.
Yes.
I'm not going to mop, but I will clean those sheets once a week and my towels every other day. So yeah, I love folding things.
And I can clean the house.
Yeah.
But at some point, I had to say, okay, I have no time.
Right.
Okay, so I hired a cleaning lady.
I know some people think that's no big deal.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And also from our, Midwestern upbringing, you don't hire somebody else to do that. That should be your pride of doing it yourself. You don't need that.
Yeah.
So allowing somebody else to help, that is huge. And you're paying them. So it's not even like help. But allowing somebody else to do something that you could do.
Yeah. Take an inventory of what are you doing? What is the role? Can you hire that out? If you can't, state your desire.
And also to go by that, not everybody has the money for that.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. Do you have to do all of the things like what I know moms talk about this too when you listen to the podcast, talking about, this is a stupid example, but like a fitted sheet. Technically, you can roll that puppy up and shove it into a thing. Does it have to be corner to corner and in its proper way? Does everything have to be perfectly done to look for, I don't know, are you running a hotel or is it a house?
Good enough.
So it's good. Yeah. Oh my God, the phrase of, and I think this is Elizabeth Gilbert in Big Magic, saying done is better than good.
Done is
better than good. Not even great, not even perfect. Just good. That's fine. It's done. Good enough.
Yeah.
That is something that we have to look at when we look at that list of what to give and take. If you can't afford to have somebody come in and help, there are things that you can do to take off of your have to do it all right.
So almost, it's kind of lower your standards.
That's what we're asking for. Just lower your damn standards. Right. You do not have to be. But I think any woman who's over 50 is learning to up the ante on taking care of ourselves and lower the standards on how it looks and appears to others. I think that really it becomes less and less vital.
Yeah. Well, and speaking, so my standards have lowered. When I left the house pre-COVID, it was hair, it was makeup, it was a full outfit with the jewelry. Now, I don't think I've done my hair in 6 months. I don't wear makeup. So the standards are lowered of what's presentable.
I'm so grateful for the
and the mask.
The mask.
Yes. So apply that concept, like
what's important, what is
your
really
house,
important,
or if you're making meals for your parents, it's okay. I've done this. I don't want them to have frozen meals all the time.
Right.
But a couple of days, they're going to have some frozen meals. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It just...
So this episode is called Lowering Your Standards.
That's right.
I do love that.
Sometimes we'll talk it out, or maybe scream and shout. It's always easy when I see you through with you.
I think what your therapist said was really vital. What can you do? What can't you do? What can you back away from? There's money issues that make it impossible. Also, for me, it's not necessarily about doing it perfect. It's about if I saw somebody drowning. Okay, so I'm in the boat and I'm looking and I'm seeing somebody whose head's kind of bobbing up in the water a little and they're kind of gasping. I'm like, are they okay? Are they playing around? And then their head goes back under and all of a sudden I realize, they can't touch their toe to the bottom. They actually can't. Their head's going under. And then they come back up and their arms, they look tired. if I see that, am I supposed to go, well, you know what? I have a boundary here. I'm not going to, what? I mean, you would never.
Yes,
so that's the reality of watching somebody physically drown. You would never in a moment not do something. Now, we learned in school, you don't jump in, without a plan and be like, I'll save you. And then they shove you under and then now you're drowning and they're drowning and now you're both drowned. We know that's true. We do need to find something to throw to them. But we need to do something. So it was really hard for my mom to be proverbially drowning, like symbolically drowning in her world and be like, what am I supposed to do? Go, well, I have a boundary. Yes and no. And that's the balance because it's really hard for me to know that my mom is suffering emotionally.
Right.
And I have the ability to help, but I also need to take care of myself. Where's that balance?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we help. And there is a period where there's a storm. In order to take care of yourself, you have to stop and say, this is not sustainable. So you've got the life ring, but the Coast Guard can come. So what can I offload? And it's going to take time, but you have to, you cannot sustain that.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a great visual.
I really do think that this episode, when we started, we weren't really sure what we're going to call it. I think it is asking for help. I mean, it really comes down to, when it comes to the roles, it's learning to ask for help. Where can you ask for help? How can you ask for help? Learning to let go of a story and find a solution, as opposed to saying, I have no choice, because once you say, I have no choice, that's where my mom was. This is my only option. When we started as the children to see what was happening, we had to step in and find a place to help, right, where we could, because it wasn't sustainable for her. But in the same token, we then need to know, and I've gotten kind of a little bit snippy. I didn't mean to, but I was trying to figure out my schedule on something. And my mom said, well, I really need this and I can't do more. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I'm talking about me right now. And it was like, and we both laughed because I was like, I hear you. I know your needs. But at the moment, I'm talking about my needs and what I can do and can't do. And fortunately, we have a sense of humor, but
And I think there has to be, like we kind of started with this, it's going to change. Like I emotionally can be their counselor. Next week, I may not be able to do that, and that's okay. Or I'm good. Like I have extra time right now. I'm able to do this role.
So let me ask you, do you say that to them then? How do you do it when you, like, let's say 1 week you're their counselor and the next week you can't be? How do we back out of that? And I'm meaning that, I'm asking that. Seriously, legitimately.
Yeah.
How do you back out, even if it's for a week or a day or a phone call? How do you do it?
I think the words that you've said to me in other situations is I need to be honest, but then there's a parallel that I need to be kind.
Yeah.
And so I need to state my need and say, let's pick something simple, that I get their groceries every Saturday and they give me a list. So, Mom, I have a very busy week at work. I won't be able to get your groceries. So I need another solution. Do you have other ideas? I have a couple. Would you like to hear them? And then they can choose. Like we can do delivery, or we could do this, or we could do that. So I'm saying it and I have never had them say, well, but if you are honest. And there's a self-assessment there too you need time to think about where you at. And believe me, I've made this error where the self-assessment is me in a puddle, like, okay, I might be a little burnt out. So there's you try to be proactive, but there are that reactive where you're off. Yeah.
I think that is dependent on your work schedule or what happened that particular day. So, but I think you're right, is that way too often we wait until we are drowning before we say, I can't. And usually that comes out for anybody who's had to deal with like some serious overburdened. you end up getting angry.
Yes.
At a point where you're like, I can't get you your groceries. And I do think this isn't uncommon at all. And I want to say forgive yourself when you do this.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we feel like the only way we can get out of it is if we say, I am so overwhelmed, I can't do anymore. And we have a big screaming session, or, the person who has to say, I'm so busy, in order to just take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, and we're learning how to say it before it gets to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, I'll use the example of drowning. So when you're swimming, you need to assess, am I getting tired? Not, am I too tired? My head just went under and I can't actually get back up.
Right.
We need to be able to say it before we get to the point. But I think maybe it's our culture. The only out is that you have no other choice.
We're in crisis mode. Yeah.
I'm going to use the opposite of drowning. My dad was just talking to the nurse about water intake.
Yeah.
And she was going through the explanation of why it's so important. My parents spent a lot of time in the Southwest. And the statement is, if you are out walking in the desert and you get thirsty, it's too late. You cannot be thirsty.
Huh.
You have to drink before you are thirsty. Because thirsty, and she was like, that's actually true. Thirsty is like the last symptom of dehydration. It's like the warning bells are going, conk, conk.
Well, now I'm getting thirsty. Like, I feel like my mouth is dry. I'm going into a mode here.
Exactly. Should we get some water? Okay, so we're back. We have a little bit of coffee. We did not hydrate. That was a mistake. But anyway, let's talk about one last thing. I have been hearing on TikTok the concept of the askers versus the assumers. So an asker is a person who asks you a question or asks for help. And if you say yes or no,
a truthful answer
of yes or no, they do not take it personally, nor will they be offended if you say no.
Or mad at you.
Right. They won't be hurt. They won't have a story about why you don't want to help them. They just asked. And if you say I can't, they're like, oh, okay. And they go and ask somebody else. Then you have the assumers.
Ding, ding.
I'm an assumer.
I'm an assumer.
I am such an assumer, and I'm really working on this. Assumers are people who will give you a half story, or
I'm really busy with my parents. I'm struggling right now. You're going to hear that and you're going to help me.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that.
I'm assuming that you heard.
You need to read my mind, Lisa. Yes.
Then when you don't, I'm like, they don't care. See?
And there's another assumption.
There is another assumption.
There's your story. You're not going to say, I need help. It's just, you need to figure that out from the story I'm telling you.
Yes.
There's an assumption there that they're hearing what you need. But you have not stated your desire or need, but they're going to read between the lines and figure that out.
I'm 100% assumer, and I am working on learning to ask. That's very hard for me to do.
If they say no, sometimes I take that personally.
Or if they never ask again.
You'll never ask again. Yeah, there's a lot to that. But think about what that role is, where you're at, and when you're asking things, does that role overlay of how you ask the question? And when you do ask a question, think about your role and how you respond when people answer, because it's important.
And now the interesting thing was listening to people talk about being an asker, because they're like, assumers are so weird. Like, how would I know? What they don't get is if they ask an assumer, we assume we have to say yes.
Is that even an option that you can say no?
But we might resent you.
Yes, we do.
And then they say, well, why would you resent? I asked, you said yes. And you're like, if I, as a assumer, hear somebody ask me, my assumption is they are at the place that I would need to be to ask that question.
You're desperate. In your mind, that is the only time that you could ask.
So I am now obligated to say yes.
You do not say no, Lisa.
But I think I'm learning that I have the right to say yes or no.
Right.
And it's not a judgment call
Right.
on whether I'm a good person or whether I care about you. I might very well care about you.
Yeah.
I just can't do that.
And I think, again, getting back to the concept is our answer can change. So this week is yes, next week is no, and be honest and kind and tell you why I can't do that. I think we'll end on that. We hope this is validating. We hope this has been helpful.
Well, it is, because we're us, and of course it's
Yes.
validating and helpful.
Exactly. So know your role, stay in your lane, but that lane can change.
What is it that we've been saying?
Good luck. Good luck with all that.
That's what we... Until next time.
Next, we've got an episode about the ins and outs of a hospital stay. We'll share our stories as normal, but Lordy, does Nurse Lana have a ton of good information. You're going to want to take notes. If you enjoyed our podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Two old friends talking to